Hi guys, welcome back for episode number 78 of the weekly playback. Thank you so much for your feedback on the lighting. A number of you responded and a lot of you said that you don't notice any difference between YouTube on your phone or on the computer, and it's not like such a huge deal for you guys. So most of you said that it's fine, so I'm just going to keep on editing my videos the way that I am on CapCut. So yeah, but if at any point it does become a problem, then do let me know. So with that being said, let's get into this week's games. Let's talk about Race to the Raft. This is a 2023 game designed by Frank West, and the art is done by Miguel de Silva and Frank West, and it's published by the City of Games, and this is for 1 to 4 players. In this game, you are going to have a board in which you are going to be placing cards, which I'll show you in a minute, and you're trying to get some cats to safety. I will say that this is review copy, however, I did check my Kickstarter confirmation, so I was credited with a retail copy of this game, and then I myself upgraded to the deluxe version. So I was given a review copy of the retail version, but I myself paid for the difference so that I could get the deluxe version of this game. So I will just show you some of the fire pieces first. So you're going to have a bag that is filled with these fire tiles, and some of them will even have colored spaces on them. And they're in all different kinds of the polyomino shapes that you would expect in, you know, a polyomino type of game. So this is a cooperative game, and you are going to have a board, and I'll put up a picture. My picture is not that great. I realized after the fact that it's a bit blurry. So, you know, there's different levels of difficulty. So you have a whole bunch of different boards here, and you're going to be putting them together depending on which scenario you are playing. The game comes with some booklets. Again, I did upgrade to the deluxe, so I'm not sure like which ones are the deluxe components and which ones aren't. This Kickstarter pack might be with just the deluxe or the Kickstarter edition of the game. So you're going to see a campaign book and the rule book. So in the campaign book, you're going to see different kinds of campaigns and how to set up your board. And that's going to tell you where the cats are going to go. And then, so you're going to have a board that's going to already have some fire on it and have some colored spaces on it. And you are going to have your cats placed out onto the board where the campaign tells you to place them. So if you have the non-deluxe version, then you will have these meeple cats instead. Where are the rest of the meeple cats? Yes, you will have these meeples instead, but I upgraded so that I could get these miniature cats. So yeah. And you are going to be on your turn, so you're going to pick up some cards. These cards are going to be divided into certain piles. And depending on the pile, so on the back of the card, you're going to see what kind of terrain you are most likely to see on that card. So like what will be the predominant terrain types. So on this, you can see that you are predominantly in these cards going to see green and yellow, and to a lesser extent, purple, red, and blue. Whereas on the X cards, you will see that you are going to see predominantly blue and green, and to a lesser extent those colors. And then on the O, those are the predominant colors, blue and red. And then on the triangle, the predominant colors are purple and yellow, and the others to a lesser extent. So on your turn, cooperatively, you know, with the other players, so I played a 2-player game of this, you are going to decide who should like take which cards and how many of the different groups, because then you're going to have to work together without really revealing any information, any like, you know, there's rules about which kind of information you can reveal when you are deciding who should go and place tiles, their cards down first. So the rules are basically that, you know, you can say something like, oh, my card would be good for green. My card is no good for blue. My card contains some orange and some blue. My card is good for red and okay for purple. But you cannot say things that would give away how many squares you have exactly of a certain type. You can't say that there's a straight path. You can't say that it has a line of purple. You can't say that it would get the red path from here to there. So you can't like point on the board and so on. So you have to it's a cooperative game, but you can't divulge too much information. And then you are going to cooperatively try to get these cats away from the fire. The thing is, when you place a card, you then have to draw a fire tile from the bag, which you are then going to place onto the board. And the fire tile has to cover these, these colored pathways and have to have at least one square adjacent to an existing fire on the board. So every time you place a card, you're going to do that. But additionally, in order to move the cats, you have to discard a card from your hand. So you're going to discard a card from your hand into what I guess is called the disaster pile. And once the disaster pile has 4 or more cards in it, you are going to resolve the disaster. You're going to discard permanently those disaster cards, the 4 of them, and draw a new fire tile from the bag. So the game moves along pretty quickly in the sense that the fire spreads pretty quickly. Because every time you place a card, you're going to have to draw a fire tile, and every time you want to move a cat, you're going to place a card onto the disaster pile. And then 4 cards in the disaster pile means that you have to draw a new fire tile. So we played a beginner level scenario in which we had 4 cats we needed to rescue. So we had 2 cats on this part of the board and 2 cats on the bottom part of the board. So we basically said, okay, you take care of those cats, I'm gonna try to take care of these cats. And we managed to work together and rescue our cats in the nick of time. I will say that maybe we might have divulged a little bit too much information, but looking at this, I don't think so actually. I think we didn't divulge too much information. So really that is how Race to the Raft plays. I think it's a pretty fun game. I really enjoyed it and I look forward to playing it again. So yeah, apparently there are rules in which you can have advanced rules. So for example, it says the active player can draw. So anytime a cat arrives at the raft and before you resolve the disaster pile, you may take one of the 2 free actions. And then there's some things about communication tokens and talk action. So there's these additional tokens that come with the game. There's even some kind of a meow action with these cats. So you may discard your meow token to start saying the word meow. And until the current pathway card or fire tile has been played, you may say meow as many times as you like, however you like, but you may not use any other words. The active player may speak normally during this time. You may try and guide the active player, but they get the final say. So apparently you can say meow to try to indicate what you want to happen. That's interesting. I would like to try that out. Maybe a fun, embarrassing fact, there was a phase in law school where I just would say meow all the time. I don't know why. So I would just be meow, just randomly. So yeah, so maybe I should try this out. Yeah, that would be fun, I think. So that is Race to the Raft, at least, the one game I played of it. So it looks like there are more, advanced levels, advanced campaigns, and I would like to try this solo. I'm curious to see how it plays solo because, you're basically doing everything. So I'm imagining that there's some kind of a bot in which you have to place a certain kind of card or something like that. That's what I'm imagining, but I really don't know. So yeah, so that is Race to the Raft. I think it's a pretty cool game. It's, from the same universe as the Isle of Cats. Isle of Cats? Yeah, Isle of Cats. So yeah, so I wonder if he'll come out with any other games in this universe, maybe a deck building game or something. I think that would be pretty cool. So yeah, so anyway, so that's Race to the Raft, and check it out if you like cats and polyomino games. Let's talk about Everdell Farshore. So this is a 2023 game. I believe it is currently on pre-order, but they should start shipping out this month, I believe. It is for 1 to 4 players, designed by James A. Wilson and Clarissa A. Wilson. The art is done by Jackie Davis, so not Andrew Bosley, who did the artwork for the original Everdell series. And it's published by Starling Games and distributed by Tabletop Tycoon. So this is a review copy that I received. This is very similar to Everdell. So it's a hand management, open drafting, set collection, worker placement game. So I will mention that I've only played the base game of Everdell. I've never played with any of the expansions. I have backed the entire big box collection with everything you can possibly get, all the upgraded components. I backed those myself on Kickstarter, so those were not review copies. So everything Everdell that I own, I paid for myself, but this is a review copy. So this game comes with this board. So this is more nautical themed. So you are going to have this board, And on this board, you are of course going to have cards that you will be drafting. There's the different locations where you see like these footprints in like the mud or whatever, these like duck kind of prints, you know, those are the different kinds of locations. You'll have some tiles with some like, you know, more better upgraded locations. This is like the round tracker, so it tells you what happens at the end of the first season and then the second and so on. So yeah, so that is the board, and the cover just fell, but that's okay. And in this game, of course, you are going to have I guess it's a lighthouse. I think it's a lighthouse. So you'll have a lighthouse. That makes sense because, you know, the whole nautical theme. But yeah, it looks like a lighthouse. It looks like there's light coming from there. So, oops, this has to go into it. Of course, I obviously didn't do that properly. So yeah, you have your lighthouse, and I'm sure I still messed up somehow. Okay, so that probably goes there. And then you are going to have like some different tiles, like so I'll explain what these do in a little bit, but you're going to have these tiles on the board that you'll be flipping at the end of like certain seasons. And like I mentioned, there's some upgraded spots. So for example, like this one is like an upgraded spot where you can get like that one of like any kind of resource. You are going to have these boats in which you will have one of your meeples sit. So the boats are really cool. I really like the boats, and they actually just fit into the insert with the sails, which is pretty cool. So like they just fit right in there with the sails and everything. So the different animal meeples, you've got some crabs, which are really cool, some yellow duckies. My favorite, of course, are the puffins, and I played as the puffins. I absolutely love puffins. And here you have some beavers. So those are the 4 different animal types in this game. The resources, you've got some like wood. It's like this, I don't know exactly what kind of wood this is supposed to be, but it's not as nice as the wood in the regular base game. Driftwood, yeah, so it's supposed to look a little bit like washed out, I guess. So you have driftwood, you have mushrooms, and these are like kind of like squishy. I really like the mushrooms. I really love like the material of these mushrooms. They're just like kind of like squishy mushrooms. So similar to some of the resources in the base game, the berries. You've got, let's see, where are these? You've got some clam, what are these called? Seashells, maybe? Yes, shell point tokens. So if you score any points during the game, you would just take one of these shells. So you have those. You have anchors. So these are metal anchors, which are really nice. And I'll explain what those are for in a little bit. And then, of course, you have like these point token thingy, not point tokens, treasure tokens, sorry. These are like treasure tokens. So yeah, I'll explain what those do. And then you will have these tiles that you will be trying to meet the goals of throughout the game. So like, you know, if you are the first person to get it, you'll get one of the tiles. And then like, for example, if you are the first person to have like 4 of these producer tags in your area, then you can take this tile, and then for each of these you have, it'll be worth like 2 points at the end of the game. So there are like different kinds of like of these goal things that you need to meet, but that's a location on the board that you need to go to in order to claim one of these. So the different animal cards in this game. So in this game, you do not have anything written on the bottom of the cards that will be like, oh, this card, you know, will allow you to play this character for free because it goes with this location. There's nothing like that going on in this game. So like, for example, you're not going to see like, oh, you know, with this card you want I don't know, like a penguin or something. You're not going to see anything like that. So all these cards, you know, there's cards with different tags on them. So you'll see different tags on the cards because again, you know, at the end of some rounds, you'll be able to activate your producer tags. And then, you know, it's kind of like a set collection game. If you want to try to get one of these things that I mentioned earlier, you need to try to get a certain number of tags and then go to that location to claim that tile so that you can get extra points at the end of the game. And additionally, I mentioned earlier, there's going to be 2 of these placed out each round. So you're going to have, like, for example, this one which says construction and this one which says paw print. So if during that round you played one of those cards into your area, your boat will get to advance I believe it's 1 or 2 spaces, maybe 1 space, I don't remember. So your boat is going to be advancing along as well. And at the end, like wherever your boat is, that's the number of points you'll get for how far your boat made it. But additionally, when you land or pass certain spots, you'll get to take a treasure token. These treasure tokens will basically count as any resource, but if you don't use them as a resource, then they'll be worth 2 points at the end of the game. So those treasure tokens come in handy. So yeah, so essentially, you know, it plays a lot like Everdell, except you don't really have the, you know, kind of like the direction, you know, or motivation to go for certain cards as much as you do in Everdell, because again, these cards don't have that written on the bottom. So, you know, I personally like that kind of like motivation or direction in Everdell. It kind of gives me more of a strategy of what I'm trying to do. In this game, if you have repeat cards in the market, you'll just place them on top of each other, so you won't see like 2 spots filled with repeat cards, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, it plays very similarly to Everdell. I just found it, you know, I really can't say that there's too much of a difference. I guess the boat thing is nice, but like it didn't like add a whole lot to the game for me. You know, I still very much enjoyed my play of Everdell that I had recently, and I can't say that one is like significantly better than the other. I think that this may be a good introductory game into the world of Everdell. So like, and maybe a good introductory game for Eurogaming as well. So like maybe Everdell might be a little bit too complicated for some people, like with, you know, if they're new to gaming, with trying to like, you know, match up the different characters to the different cards and stuff, and maybe they might feel a little bit more frustrated. So this is a bit more of a free game in which you don't have to worry as much about trying to get the cards that you need. Resources in this game, though, are much harder to come by, I feel like. I do feel like in Everdell, it was easier for me to get resources, you know, but in here, I felt like way more constrained with the number of resource spots available on the board and such. So I do think resources are harder to come by, but maybe that's why they also have these treasure tokens, which you can also get by advancing your boat. But again, you know, the whole boat mechanic, you know, it's kind of a fun element, but I don't think it's like something that I feel like is missing in Everdell. But again, I didn't play the expansions to Everdell, so I can't compare it to any of the expansions. I think some other reviewers said that this kind of like streamlines Everdell with some expansions, so rather than bringing out Everdell and adding in an expansion, you could just play this game instead. I can't comment on that because I've not yet played with any of my Everdell expansions, but I hope I will soon, because I love the way those expansions look, and I just love the way the certain animals look in those games. So I really hope I will get to play at some point a game of Everdell with my expansions. Oh, I did forget to show these resources. Oh, I'm so sorry. There's also like these gems. What are these? Sea stones. There's like sea stones, and there's also like the seaweed. The seaweed is a kind of like also like that squishy material, but they're just very thin seaweed. So yeah, I forgot to show those, my bad. So yeah, so I think that's it really. I don't know what else I can say. Like, you know, it plays similarly to Everdell, where you place a worker or play a card, and then when you can no longer do anything, you retrieve your workers and you're going on to the next season, you grab your additional worker and so on. So yeah, so basically the same. So that was Everdell Farshore. Let's talk about First Rat. This is a 2022 game for 1 to 5 players, designed by Gabriel Osiello and Virginio Gigli. The art is done by Dennis Lohausen, and it's published by Pegasus Spiel. This is a kind of like a, let's see, it's a point-to-point movement, race, set collection game. Yeah, so I attended Millennium Games' Learn and Play, and this was the game that they were teaching. And of course, when you go to those Learn and Plays at Millennium Games, you have an opportunity to win the game. I did not win the game, but I liked it so much and I wanted to add it to my collection, so I bought one of the used copies that they used for the Learn and Play sessions. So it ended up being pretty cheap for me because he sold it to me for $20, and then I had some store credit. So in the end, I ended up paying like only like, I think like $10 for this or something like that. Because when you go to one of those Learn and Plays, you pay $10 to enter, and then play games, like use that space, which is a really nice space. And then you also get entered into the raffle and you get that $10 back as store credit. So I think it worked out really well. So here is the board. So in this game, you are rats, and you are trying to build a spaceship. So you're gonna be starting all the way here, and you're gonna be, oh sorry, that's the wrong side of the board. That's the more advanced side of the board. So you're going to be starting down, okay, now is this upside down? No. So you're gonna be starting down here, and you're going to be moving along on these spaces, trying to get various things. There's going to be various like items here and here as well for you to pick up if you want to, here as well. And there's going to be items down here as well, and I'll explain what this is like the burrow section of the board. I'll explain how that works. You will also see like some lamps, like some electricity along the path, which you also want to advance your electric marker on. So in order to advance your electric marker, you have to be on one of these blue spaces, and then you can advance the number of light bulbs. And as you get further and further along, you'll see that the resources that you accumulate become more and more lucrative. So I'll explain why you want to advance on the light bulb. So basically, you're trying to advance, you're collecting resources, and then you want to turn in those resources and place one of your cubes on the farthest box that you're able to get the maximum number of points. So if you're the first one to construct this part of the ship, you will get 9 points. Depending on the player count, you may have to cover up some of these spaces with gray cubes, and up here with the gray rats. If you complete all 4 sections of the spaceship, you get to place a cube up here. If you completely finish the whole track with one of your rats, you have the option of placing your rat here and getting some points, or you can, I believe, send that rat back, or get rid of that rat, I think, and immediately bring out a new rat. So otherwise, in order to bring out a new rat, you need to go around the burrow, and I'll explain again how that works, because you're going to have some additional rats here. So you start the game with 2 rats, and then you have 2 rats here, which you need to go around the burrow in order to release. And you can move more than 1 rat at a time. So I'll explain how all of that works. So let me just pull out all of these resources and stuff. So here is, like, for example, a purple player board, which shows you the actions you can do. So you can either move 1 rat 1 to 5 spaces, or you can move 2 or more rats. So you can even move all 4 rats 1 to 3 spaces each. But when you move them, they have to land on this identical colored space, unless you have a bonus tile of some kind that allows you to not follow that rule. Like I had a bonus tile which allowed me to move multiple rats up to 4 spaces each. So yeah, so if you are using that action, you need to move each rat. You can't have a rat stay still. You have to move them, and they have to land on the same colored space, but not the same space. So it has to be the same color, but different spaces. And then you, of course, perform your actions. If you are if your light bulb is ahead of you and you are on a certain space, you get to add 1 additional resource of that kind. So that's where the light bulb comes in. So you want your light bulb marker as far along as possible, so wherever you land, you can always get 1 additional resource of the space that you are on. So that's how the light bulbs work. Some of the resources that you'll see, like there's apple cores. Apple cores are what allow you to move down here. So you'll have a tiny rat token which moves along the burrow, and there's only certain directions you can go, but you can go around multiple times and stuff like that. There's going to be some bonus kind of tiles here that you want to pick up that will give you some special abilities, and then you'll have some additional rats here, which if you stop here you can pick up. Additionally, if you go here, you can just place a cube and get some points. So like, let's suppose you've picked up all your rats that you want to, and you've picked up some bonus tiles, then you can go and stop in that section to get some extra points. Cheese, of course, you need cheese. So, some of the spaces have cheese on them. Some of them have like, vinegar, baking soda. There's peas. Peas are a little bit harder to get. Yeah, so, and then calculators are really hard to get. So calculators are really hard to get. You will see some shortcuts on the board. In the game I played a 4-player game of this. No one used any shortcuts to like jump from here to here. Like to use that shortcut, you would need to pay baking soda, but to use this one, you would need to spend a calculator. And calculators are really hard to get. So I would not recommend that, and I did not do that, but of course I came in last place, so maybe you shouldn't listen to me. So yeah. What else? There's going to be, like I mentioned, there's going to be some special tiles here. So you're going to have backpack tiles. And let's suppose you get to this location and you want a backpack tile, but it costs 6 cheese and you don't have 6 cheese. You can just steal it, but then your rat has to go back to the very beginning. But sometimes you want that to happen, because sometimes you don't want your rat to reach the end and you actually want it send it back so that you can move multiple rats at the same time. So sometimes stealing is actually worth it. Yeah, so I actually, yeah, so again, you probably do want to steal, because I did not steal in the beginning of the game, and I, you know, then tried to move a little bit further along to try to collect some other resources and stuff. Like I was just kind of like building up my resources, and other people were already trading in stuff for like their cubes to earn points and stuff, and I wasn't doing that. So maybe you do want to steal, maybe. So yeah. So yeah, you know, there's different kinds of resources that you're, again, trying to collect to turn them in. And then at the end of the game, for any 3 resources you have, or 4 maybe, it'll be worth 1 point. So yeah, so if you aren't able to spend resources, then, you know, you'll be able to turn them in for points at the end. The game end will trigger once someone has placed their last cube. So you have 8 cubes. You have 10 cubes total, but when someone has placed their 8th cube, the game end will trigger. And then, you know, depending on who triggered the game end, you'll probably get 1 additional round. So that way the person who triggered the game end will probably have another chance to place their 9th or 10th cube, you know, because of that. So let me just show you some of like the bonus tiles and stuff like that. So like, for example, here are some of the bonus actions that you can do. So like, for example, this one would allow you to move an additional space when you're moving multiple rats. I actually had that one. This one, if you land on a yellow space, you can get an additional resource of your choice. This one, let's see. Yeah, so there's like different of those bonus tiles. These are the ones that you can get from the burrow. This one would have been really handy for me. You can treat red and green spaces as though they are the same color, like interchangeably. So you can interchange those colors, which I think would have been really helpful for me. So those are some of the bonus tiles like those. Here, let me just show you some of the resources. So here are the peas. The resources in this game, like I'll post up a picture, but like, oh my God, do these cans like pop off the board? They really look 3D. It's amazing. So you have these soda cans. These soda cans are really cool because if you manage to collect a soda can, you can spend this soda to collect double the amount of resources on that turn that you decide to turn this in, and then crush it. So then you would show that the soda can is crushed. So like, let's suppose you had light bulbs in play. Let's suppose you had multiple rats landing on the same colored space in different locations. So you might end up collecting like, say, 10 resources, but then you could use this and actually get 20 resources instead. Very helpful for the light bulbs, I would say, and to move your light bulb marker. But again, you know, I didn't win. I came in last place, so, you know, maybe don't take my word for that. So here are some bottle caps, which you can get towards the end of the board. I did not manage to get a bottle cap, but depending on which bottle cap you had, and depending on like different areas of the board that you managed to place cubes in, for like each cube, you would like get some extra points. I did not manage to get a bottle cap, so that probably hurt me, whereas all the other players did. You know, and then here are the backpacks. So backpacks just basically give you additional resources of a certain kind when you land on that space. So like, for example, if you land on a blue space, you will get 2 extra light bulbs. So you know, there's different kinds of backpacks that you can collect, and those are permanent. Like, so you don't discard backpacks or the comics, which give you that bonus that I showed earlier. The only thing you really do end up discarding in this game is the soda cans if you use those, and then of course the resources when you're turning them in to place your cube and get points. So then at the end of the game, you know, you're basically going to score. You're going to look at all the different rocket sections and add up everyone's points there. You're going to add up any points here in the cheese crate where you could just turn in cheese for points. You know, you'll look at the bottle caps, and then at the end, you know, you'll see if you have any leftover resources, and so on. And also, if your rat reached the end and you chose to get some points, when your rat reached the end of the board, you'll you know, look at what points you get for that. So yeah, so it's a pretty cool game in which you start with 2 rats, but you have the ability to bring out 2 extra rats during the game. So one of the players, He did not, let me actually look at the scores because I know I recorded them. So one of the other players, he did better than me, but he was only working with 2 rats in the entire game. So let me show you the scores. So the winner had 73 points. Then the next person had 63 points. Oh, wait a second. The winner was the one who only had 2 rats. So, okay, so maybe don't listen to me. So the winner in this game, he was working with just 2 rats, which was crazy, unless I mixed up the scores, but I don't think I did. I'll have to ask my friend and make sure I didn't mix up the scores. But yeah, so the winner had 73, then there was 63, then there was 59, and then me with 46. But yeah, I really enjoy this game. So, you know, I enjoy a good racing game, and I think that this is a fun, good racing game. So I really enjoyed it. So I just had to buy it and add it to my collection. And I know I already have too many games, but I just really, really enjoyed it. So I just really wanted it. So yeah, so I added this to my collection. And considering I was able to get it for pretty cheap after, you know, taking in the discount because I bought a used copy and then taking in the store credit into account. So yeah. So really fun game. This game I actually had my eye on at UKGE last year, but I did not get a chance to play it until just this past Friday. So yeah, so if you like racing games and just really like fun Euro games, I would say check out First Rat. I do think it's really fun. So yeah, definitely check out this game. So another game I played recently is The Search for Lost Species. I do not own this game, so I cannot show it to you. This is a 2023 game for 1 to 4 players designed by Matthew O'Malley and Ben Rossett. The art is done by Only Art, and the publisher is Renegade Games Studio. So this is a deduction game very similar to The Search for Planet X. The only ways in which they are a little bit different is that you have a board that you can actually move meeples around. So you have an explorer and you can move your explorer around this board. I wouldn't say it's super necessary, like it just allows you to kind of visually see on the board where you're going. But if, you know, this is one of those apps where you have to use a companion. This is one of those games where you have to use a companion app. So on the companion app, when you are, you know, trying to research certain locations, you're going to select those locations on the app itself. So it's not entirely necessary that you really have a meeple on the board. I guess it kind of gives other players an idea of where you are and where you're going. So maybe it helps a little bit with note-taking in that sense. But otherwise, probably not super different from The Search for Planet X. Except for that just meeple moving around the board. So, you know, you're trying to uncover where the lost species is. So you're going to, I did find it to be more difficult than The Search for Planet X. So you're going to have different species, and different species have different logic rules. So for example, the birds, the lories, they're always going to be in a group together of 4. You're going to have certain mountains placed throughout the board, and I believe there are certain different board variations that you can use. I believe there's like 2 different variations of the board. So you'll have different, you know, mountains locations to place on the board, and then you'll have a logic rule that says something like, oh, this animal cannot be across a mountain from this species. You know, you'll have like these conferences in which you'll get 2 logic rules for the lost species. Like, so when I played, one of the logic rules was that the lost species is not in a straight line from any other animal in the southwest direction. Like at first I was like, oh my God, this is so complicated. What the hell does this mean? But as I finally started uncovering more and more animals, I was able to make sense of it. Like there's a compass on the board, and I was able to see like, okay, what southwest means to them. Because like whenever it comes to directional games, like even when I'm driving somewhere and, you know, if the map tells me turn east, I'm like, what the hell is east? Like, tell me what is east. Like, I don't know what east is. Like, where am I going? You know, so like I need a compass that shows me I'm headed in this direction. So the board has that compass, so it'll tell you this way is southwest, this way is northwest, and then you can just kind of like see what the straight line would be and kind of deduce from that where the lost species might be or where it might not be. So I actually did really well in this game, and I won this game. So I actually won the first ever game that I played of The Search for Planet X as well. So the very first time I ever played The Search for Planet X was with Jan from, you know, he used to be on the Quackalope channel. And so this game I played with a friend, and I won this game too. I was able to make a few correct predictions about where animals were. So that's very similar to The Search for Planet X, where you put forward theories and they get points for those theories. So very similar in this game, you can do the same where certain animals are located. Yeah, and then if you're the first person to discover the lost species, you'll get a certain number of points for that, but other players still have a chance. Like I remember the first time I ever played the Search for Planet X, I did not discover where the planet was first. Jan actually did, but I still won because I still had more points in the end of the game. So yeah, so if you enjoy deduction games, highly recommend this game. I do find it to be more difficult than the Search for Planet X. It's more interesting in some ways, and I love both games because I love the theme of both games. I'm someone who actually really loves astronomy, and of course I really love animals, so I love both games, and I definitely want to add this one to my collection as well at some point. Around the board you do have like this one Discover Meeple whatever traveling around, and so when he stops at different locations you will have the opportunity to then place forward your theories and stuff like that. And then you'll resolve them when he reaches other locations. You also have the opportunity to visit towns, and you have the opportunity to use a camera. It takes much longer for you to get your camera back. There's only one spot that allows you to basically get your camera back, I believe. You can go to towns and pick up these cards, which will be very beneficial, which will allow you to do a certain action for like less movement. So you don't have to spend as much movement in order to do certain actions, which is very beneficial. I don't know what the equivalent of that would be in the Search for Planet X. I'm not sure that there is an equivalent of that, so maybe that's a little bit something different in this game as well. So yeah, it's a really great game. If you enjoy deduction games, highly recommend it. It is rated, so I'm curious what the difference in ratings are. So right now, this is rated 8.1 on BGG, and the Search for Planet X, let's see what that's rated. And the Search for Planet X is rated 8.0, so very close actually. So I mean, basically the same. And of course the Search for the Lost Species is a newer game, so of course I imagine the rating to maybe even increase because of more and more people getting their copies of it. I believe that it just fulfilled recently for the Kickstarter backers. So yeah, so if you enjoy deduction games, definitely check out the Search for Lost Species. So I had the opportunity to play yet another game of Fromage. So I think in my last video I mentioned that I got to play a 2-player game of it, and it scaled very well. And as you know, Fromage is coming out on Kickstarter in September. So it's being published by Road to Infamy Games, which is the same publisher as Canvas. I absolutely love Fromage. It's a simultaneous worker placement game in which you have a circular board. I discussed this game at length in a previous video, so I'm going to link that below if you want to learn how this game plays. But I made one error. I did not realize, and I don't know why I missed this, that the one area of the board that I said was not that lucrative for scoring could actually end up being lucrative because I did not realize that the spaces I thought were actually blocked off actually count as a space for all players. So in the section of the board where you need to get as many of your cheese pieces as possible adjacent to each other so you can score the maximum number of points, this should have been very clear to me, because throughout the whole game, anything that is a gold colored space is more lucrative and will be better for you and help you to get more points in every single section of the board. The gold ones are the most valuable, then the silver, and then the bronze, which is why it takes 3 rotations of the board for you to get your gold pieces back, your workers placed on the gold sections, and it takes 2 rotations of the board for you to get your silver workers back, and it takes 1 rotation of the board to get a worker back that was placed on a bronze spot. So it should have been very clear to me that those multicolored spaces, which I thought were blocked off, it just looks like awnings, so it's a multicolored space that has all the colors of every player. So it has blue, white, red, and black. I thought it was just an awning blocking off certain spaces, but it should have been clear to me that those were not blocked off spaces but free spaces, because they always had gold spaces next to them, and gold spaces are more lucrative. So you can actually earn a good amount of points from that section. So we realized that a little bit too late. So the last game I played of Fromage, so the first time I ever played Fromage, I played a 4-player game of it. And then, most of the scores were pretty close. But for that section of the board, the Fromagerie, or maybe it was the festival. Actually, it was the festival section of the board. Very low points. So one person scored 1 point and another player scored 2 points. So clearly we scored the festival section of the board incorrectly in that game. And then I played with another player, a 2-player game, and in that section, because I had decided in the first game that the festival is not lucrative, I, in this game, did not try to place any of my cheese pieces there. So in the second game I played, one player scored 15, and he scored 15 believing that those sections were blocked off. So he did really well there. But he should have scored more points. So maybe he actually should have won, because in the end he had 34 points and I had 51 points. But again, we scored festival incorrectly. And then in the most recent game I played a 4-player game of this, and we did score the festival correctly this time. Or maybe we didn't. I can't remember if the scores here we did correctly or not. Oh no, we did correctly. So the player with the highest amount of points had 11, and then someone had 6 and someone had 4, and I had 0 because, like an idiot, I didn't place any cheese pieces there because I thought there were blocked off spaces. So yeah, so that was one thing I messed up in my rules overview of the game in my weekly playback like 2 or so weeks ago. Luckily it's not something I mentioned in my 1-minute or 2-minute overview video that I shot of this game. So, you know, I didn't go into the details about the scoring of the separate sections. So I did mention that you have to have pieces adjacent to each other in order to score points in that section. But I didn't mention that, oh, these spaces are blocked up. So thank God. So that is a correction for Fromage. So if you get a chance to back this game and then play it, you know, keep that in mind. And I think that this rule is going to be seared in my brain after this, because after the last game we played and I didn't put a single cheese piece there, and I just performed very badly in this game. So in this game, like the winner had 76 points, then someone had 73, and then someone had 56, and I scored 39 points. And that's me on my 3rd play of this game. So yeah, I just performed very badly because, like an idiot, I thought I had fulfilled one of my bonus buildings when I did not. So I thought I was going to score like mega points for all these animals I had. And I didn't even have a lot of animals, but I thought I was going to score mega points because I thought I had all 4 sections of this one building that would allow me to score points. And then at the end of the game, I realized I did not have all 4 sections. I only had 3 out of 4 sections completed. So I did not get to score extra points for my animals. But I still love this game so much, and I honestly cannot wait to get like my production copy of this game, which I know is going to be like a year away because it's only coming on Kickstarter in September. And I have to send this review copy on to another reviewer. So unfortunately, I won't get to play it anymore, but I am super looking forward to getting this game. I just find it to be so delightful. I just think it's a really delightful simultaneous worker placement game. So if you get a chance, check it out on Kickstarter when it's on Kickstarter next month. So moving on. So some other small box games that I played again recently. I had yet another play of Hens, which is a game I absolutely love. This is such a great card game in such a small box. I seriously love this game. I'm gonna post my chickens that I played in the last game of this because, like, I think I got super lucky. I ended up just placing a whole bunch of award-winning chickens. So I think I had my highest score ever in this game, in that game. So in this game, I scored 45 points, which I think is pretty good. And my opponent, she is a gamer, but it was her first time playing this game. She scored 34. In previous games, scores ranged anywhere from like the teens to the 30s. I don't see another score anywhere in the 40s, like not even remotely close. Like the highest score previously was 31. So yeah, so 45 was a really good score in Hens. Like I said, I got really lucky with all of these award-winning hens that had not only eggs on them, but ribbons as well. So just very lucky. So I really love this game, and I'm really looking forward to the game of theirs that I backed on Kickstarter recently, which is Coney. Maybe they will have late pledges. So I think this is a really, really fun, thinky game in a small box. So if you enjoy games like that, card games, and it has a really good solo mode too. I've played it solo as well, and I really enjoy the solo mode as well. Another game I played recently, again for like, I don't know, the billionth time, is Botanik. So this is a game I introduced to people who I'm playing games with for the first time, who are kind of new gamers. So I played this with someone who is not really a board gamer, and he really enjoyed it. So he really, really loved Botanik, and was like ready to play again right after we played it. So highly recommend this game. I've played this so many times now. I don't even know how many plays of this I have, because I know that I've played it a number of times where I didn't even record the scores. It's a really great 2-player tile placement game with a really interesting mechanic of how you get those tiles and how you can maybe even screw the other player. It's really good. Another tile placement game I played recently, 2 players, is Beacon Patrol. So this is a cooperative game. So none of these are review copies, by the way. I purchased all of these myself. So this is a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players. I've played a solo game of this, which I performed very badly in, but now I played a 2-player game of it. And you are trying to like like Carcassonne-esque, place tiles and stuff and then score for different kinds of tiles that are surrounded on all sides, and then if they have like different like icons in them, you'll score extra points. It's quite difficult to score, I think, a good score in this. Like, it can be really tricky because after you place a tile, you have to be able to move your ship onto the tile you just placed. So you have to have a water like path for you to move onto it. So that can actually make it difficult. You can like exchange tiles with your opponent and so on. We did not perform too well in our play of this, but I really like the game. I really like the theme of it. I just really like the aesthetic of the game as well. So, and it has a solo mode. So I enjoyed the solo mode of that game as well, which I did play once. So yeah, so, you know, check out Beacon Patrol if you want to. I think, you know, it came out recently. I had pre-ordered this on the website. So yeah, so those are some additional games that I played recently. So let's move on. So let's move on to games that I am backing. Currently, the only game I'm backing is a game that I was sponsored to do an overview video for, and that is Wizards & Co. So as most, you know, as I've mentioned numerous times, my fee to do an overview video always includes a production copy of the game. So I typically back any games that I have covered at $1, or in this case £1, so I can follow along the campaign and just you know, be on top of updates so that I know when I can expect my production copy of the game. And oftentimes the publisher will just credit my account so that, you know, I don't have to remind them later to send me a copy of the game. So it's much easier that way. I like to include a production copy of the game in my fee, which is why I also have a relatively lower fee for overview videos compared to a lot of content creators, just because I do always ask for a copy of the game, and so, you know, I kind of include that as like a part of the fee, which is why my actual monetary amount is less than most other content creators. So yeah, so that's the only thing I'm backing right now. I unfortunately forgot to cancel my pledge for Find the Fun Design Game Design Resources book, which I said I was going to cancel, and then I kept on, you know, I had it on my to-do list and then I forgot. So I'm going to be receiving that book, even though I said I probably don't need it in the end. But who, you know, maybe I'll find some interesting facts in it or some helpful, you know, resources in there. So hopefully it'll be helpful. So yeah, so I'm not backing anything else at the moment. It looks like that there are some interesting campaigns coming out soon, so I'll be keeping an eye on those. But yeah, so moving on. So games that I have received recently, I've already shown those to you guys. So I received a review copy of Everdell Farshore, which I just covered earlier in this video, and then I bought a copy of First Rat. I have not received anything else recently. So let's move on to updates and questions. So for updates, let's talk about cats. So because of my last video, a viewer of mine, Richard, watched it and he made a donation. So thank you so much, Richard. And also my sister and brother-in-law donated some money. So I'm hoping to, you know, purchase a shelter for the cats. You know, I've still been going every day. So yeah, so I'm hoping to use those donations to purchase a shelter. I actually did have a friend go with me one day to take care of the cats, and I asked him to record what I do when I take care of these cats. So I thought it might be helpful for people to see exactly what I'm doing, and, you know, that way you can see proof that I'm not just making this up. Although, you know, I take pictures of the cats and stuff too, so hopefully that would serve as proof enough. But if people need more proof, you know, hopefully I don't look terrible in this video. I haven't seen it yet, but I asked a friend to record what I do when I go and take care of the cats, and like record me like cleaning out all the bowls and then filling them up with water and food and so on. So yeah, so I was wondering, like, what, you know, in certain instances people have done live streams for fundraising. I have never done a live stream of any kind, but what would you guys say to a live stream of some kind for fundraising efforts for these cats? Like, you know, I would just love to hear some feedback or some thoughts about, you know, if you guys can come up with some creative ideas that I could, you know, do in order to raise funds for these cats, and maybe you can get something out of it as well. Maybe I can reach out to publishers for game donations and then like do a live stream or something, and like maybe play some online games with someone or something, you know, because people have raised funds for, like, you know, natural disasters and other things around the world. So if I can raise funds that way for the cats, maybe that's a good idea. So if you have any suggestions on fundraising ideas that would involve board gaming, in which the community would actually want to get involved, then please let me know, because it's already August and winter will be here before we know it, which I don't want to think about. I actually really love autumn and I don't want to think about winter yet. But yeah, let me know if you have any ideas about that. Just another update, if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen all of my posts about this, but many videos ago now, I mentioned how I had made some new gaming friends in the community and I was super excited and so on, and it turns out I couldn't have been more wrong about certain people. So I have learned a huge lesson to not trust people, not give them all of my trust right away anymore, because it turns out I was just being used to try to further this person's content creation career on Instagram. So yeah, and it just turned out to be very bad. So it turned out to be a very bad experience. There's like a lot of stuff that was said and done by this person that I won't go into this video, but I have talked about on Twitter. And if you want to reach out to me personally, I can talk to you in personally in private messages and explain kind of what happened. But it was not a good experience, and I'm going to, as a content creator, I guess, be more wary when people seem really eager to be my friend. Because I could never have imagined that someone would just want to be my friend just to try to further their own content creation career, when they didn't really have a presence on Instagram before, but they just really, really want to have a presence and start receiving review copies. So they just basically use me. So that was not fun to learn that in the most unpleasant of ways. So yeah, just a word of advice to content creators. I know it's a really small industry and it can be quite cutthroat, because it's like, as I've mentioned in videos before, it's like multiple people want a big piece of a pie when there's very little pie to go around. Just be careful if you're a content creator and someone just, seems very eager to be your friend. Just be wary of people's intentions. I need to learn to not trust people or give them all of my trust right away. So lesson learned. So moving on. So let's move on to questions and commentary. So first, going back to last week's question, I cannot believe I forgot this. So a friend of mine, Michael, he always watches my videos and he always emails me or messages me with his answers to my question of the week and talks to me about it. And I totally messed up. So I mentioned what my top 3 deduction games were last week, and it did not even occur to me to include Whitehall Mystery. Like, I did not even realize that that's actually a deduction game. And it's one of my all-time favorite games. Like, I have played Whitehall Mystery so many times. I absolutely love that game so much. It's one of my most played games, and I did not even include it as a deduction game in last week's question. So that was a huge mistake. So please, let's add Whitehall Mystery to that list as well. Probably somewhere near the top, in fact, because I absolutely love Whitehall Mystery. Those hidden movement games are deduction games as well. I still have not played my copy of Fury of Dracula. I really need to play that someday soon. So thank you to everyone who answered the question. I believe that was last week's question, wasn't it? So moving on. So this week's question, I will ask, if you went to Gen Con, and even if you didn't go to Gen Con, there will be a question for you. But if you went to Gen Con, which game were you most excited to play there and or purchase there? So I would love to know. So I did not go to Gen Con, but a friend of mine, I believe it was his first time, Paul, if you're watching, hi. So he very generously, because he was actually working for a publisher, so he got flown to Gen Con and everything, which was really awesome for him. And so he very, very kindly offered to keep an eye out for some games that I would want. And he very, very kindly picked up 2 of the games, which I'll, of course, transfer the funds to him for shipping and everything as well. So I will have a tiny Gen Con haul, even though I didn't go, which is pretty cool, because these 2 games, they're first available at Gen Con and I really, really wanted them, but I'm going to wait and show you what they are until I get them. So I'm not going to even mention what they are right now, but I'm super excited that he was able to pick up 2 of the games that were on the top of my list for me. So that's really awesome. But if you did not go to Gen Con, what is a game that you are most excited to have backed on Kickstarter or purchased recently. I would love to know, like, what is the thing that you are most excited about right now? So like I said, I didn't go to Gen Con, so I was super excited to purchase First Rat after playing it recently, so I guess I will include that as my answer. And then I will, of course, show you which games my friend was able to get for me, because I'm super excited about them. So one of them I'm like really super excited about. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with Halloween, and if you have been following me for a long time, you know how much I love Halloween. I've already started decorating my house for Halloween, by the way. So yeah, I love Halloween so freaking much. So one of the games is a Halloween edition of a really apparently good 2-player game, which I've never played, and I don't own that game, like the regular edition of it, but now I will own the Halloween edition of it, so I'm so excited. I actually only own the Halloween edition of Patchwork as well, which I was super excited about because the regular edition of that game just looks really ugly to me. Oh, that's another great question, but maybe I'll save it for next week. So yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that and save that for next week. So until next week, guys, bye.